If you've watched tech videos before, like on this channel, usually the studio looks immaculate and everything is clean and shiny, and that's kind of a lie. Behind the scenes, there is always a huge mess, so start of the new year, we want to clean things up a bit, and to help us out, the sponsor of this video, the Narwal Freo, is going to be doing all of the vacuuming and mopping for us. Now, if you have any experience with cleaning tech products, there's always some amount of work that you've got to do yourself. So for example, we do still have to move things out of the way because this robot doesn't have arms and can't clean up itself, but what it can do is both mop and vacuum, and I haven't had that in any of my cleaning automated products before. So this is the latest product from Narwal, and while I was waiting for it to arrive, I was watching a few other tech reviewers talk about their T10. That's the model that was out last year, and the most common complaint was that you had to replace the mop heads on it manually as it was going to mop or vacuum, so there was that extra human intervention. Glad to say, you don't have to do that on the Freo. It handles it all automatically. But we'll get more into the details later. First, okay, studio is clean, so let's start unboxing it. As you start taking the pieces out, everything is really organized and there's big, clear, printed instructions as you go, so you know what you have to do. Has a big QR code, so you can download the app, get started programming it, setting it up with your local Wi-Fi. And once it was all open, we took a bit of an inventory to see what all the products look like close up. The main unit itself, it's pretty large. I mean, smaller than a mini fridge, but you're just gonna have to find a little corner of the room that can go next to the wall where there's power access, and it can just stay there and it'll take care of itself. It has a really big, beautiful, high resolution, full color display on it for navigating the menus, and you can kind of do just about everything in there, even if you don't have the app handy. Like let's say it's set up to your app and somebody else is at home and they want to run the vacuum. They can easily do it all through this menu. You don't need to have the app connected to get started with it. Inside, there is a clean water and a dirty water tank. They are very hard to miss which one's which, very clearly labeled and color-coded. And there's also a detergent, so when I was unpacking it, I didn't realize what was going to happen is this actually just goes inside the machine. You don't need to pour it or mix anything manually. It just gradually dispenses the right amount of soap every time that it mops, and you don't have to deal with it until it's empty. If we look at the vacuum itself, it's got everything that you'd expect from a high-end automated vacuum. Sensors on all sides of it. So it has a drop sensor, so it knows if it would fall off an edge like stairs. Sensors on the sides, so it detects when a wall is nearby. It's got a bumper pad, so it gently bumps into your furniture, walls, things like that, and knows not to go any further. And the Freo also has what they call dirt sense technology, which has some level of understanding of how dirty the floor is, so it kind of knows when it's done. Putting everything together is really simple. There are two brush pads, just like a typical broom, I guess. They're clearly labeled left and right, so you just snap them on. It just takes a second or two. You can also easily pop them off if you need to clean them later. I really like how the mop heads were designed. First of all, you can just peel off the fabric and wash it in the sink when it's dirty. But what felt really cool as you're putting it together is their use of magnets. They just snap on to the bottom and it kind of pulls itself into place. In fact, while we were assembling all of this, there's a bunch of different magnetic moments where it just kind of pulled itself together in the right way. It's very satisfying. In addition to those little bristles around the outside, there's also a main roller unit in the center. This is kind of the large piece that you'd see in a traditional vacuum. Obviously, it's going to scoop up everything that's there. So basically all sides of the vacuum are active in one way or another and are part of picking it up. The dust trap is pretty big. I mean, our floors are really dirty right now. They have not been vacuumed in preparation for this test. So in our first test going around, we actually filled up this dustbin 2 times before the floor was finally getting clean enough that it stopped just overflowing. But it really gives you a clear sense of how much is being picked up. There's also a little air filter that's cleaning out some of the particles that is really easy to replace in the future. The top little head thing on the vacuum actually has a LiDAR sensor, so that's part of what is scanning things at a distance in the room so that it can create a 3D map and really understand the space that it's moving through, predict where objects are going to be, and plan out its path before it even starts. And by the way, when you've run it a few times, it's really fun to check the app and see what the map it drew was, because it not only accurately shows you the room that it's moving around, but shows you how it cleaned it. So it says like, this area was vacuumed and this area over here was mopped and this is how clean it is. It's very satisfying to check later. Once you're done, you've put the unit in place, connected it to Wi-Fi. It's super easy to get started. All you need to do is tell it if you want to vacuum or mop, or vacuum and mop, or vacuum and then mop. And I love that it has all these modes depending on what you need to do at the moment, especially because it's like, you know, if you've got a lot of dust around, you don't want it to start mopping right away. Then there's also a new mode that they call Freo Mode, where it basically decides what it needs to do to keep it the cleanest. It's a little more automated, and using some of those dirt sensors to judge the best thing to do to keep your floor clean. It was so satisfying to watch it go around on its first pass of vacuuming, because like I said, we needed it pretty badly around here. And it really found its way all around the room. So it has a few different sensors so that it can both get close up to the wall, go right against it, and those sweeping bristles go right into the corner so it's not missing spots. And then underneath, the wheels actually have quite a bit of suspension, so it can like lift itself up and get over most rugs. I mean, it had no trouble just navigating the whole room. And by the end of just kind of randomly, what looks random to me, just drifting around the room, eventually it had hit every spot and, like I said, totally filled up those dustbins. You know, something else I really appreciated about it is that it's surprisingly quiet, like very quiet. In fact, it's running right now. Like, would you ever think to run a vacuum while you're recording audio? I mean, I never do, but it's downstairs cleaning right now while I'm talking. And you can probably hear it a little bit, but not too much. Or can you hear? You may not hear it. I don't know. Tell me in the comments, can you hear it right now? This vacuum's got a few different noise levels, so let's do some scientific tests of how loud it is. On normal mode. Now we're gonna switch it to strong. Okay, now we're on super powerful suction. Quiet mode. And that's the official Narwal volume test. When it's cleaning out the side of a wall, like a corner, it uses a method called sweep and swing, because obviously this is a round vacuum cleaning a square corner, so it goes back and forth as many times as it needs to get all the dust out of the edges. After it systematically passes through every part of the room, over and over the rugs, over the ground, eventually it'll automatically switch into mop mode. Now again, I'm really glad it can do all this on its own and I don't need to intervene. Like, an interesting detail is that it understands where the rugs are, and you can kind of see them on the map that it draws, so that when it switches from vacuum to mop, it's not gonna mop the carpets. Like, obviously you wouldn't want that. It understands that, and it will detect them as it goes and only mop around them. Again, with the mopping, it had no issues finding everything. In fact, I threw a little bit of milk in front of it to see how it'd clean it up. It got it just fine. It really cleaned up the whole room with no issues. Going back and forth a few times to refresh the water, to clean off its own little mop brushes. By the way it does that is really interesting. In the bottom, it has a unit that is detecting how dirty the mop brushes are, cleaning them and drying them to make sure there's no chance of bacteria growing there. In fact, actually, I hear it going right now. I think that's what it's doing. It's drying those mop brushes so that you don't have to babysit it again, like it's handling that stuff for you. I also like that in the app, you can set what kind of texture of floor that it's on. So the studio is mostly concrete, but we also have some wood flooring upstairs, and it'll understand the difference of how much water to apply to that, because wood flooring can warp and have problems if it gets too wet. So a human mopping it wouldn't soak it to the point of warping. So obviously you won't want the robot to do that either. You tell it which floor that it's on and it'll apply the appropriate amount of water for that environment. Another great upgrade to the Narwal Freo is that it has 3,000 PA, that's pressure units of suction, 1,000 more than the T10, the previous unit. So it's really able to pull up a lot more dirt and dust from the ground, and more than a lot of other robot vacuums out there. So now that it's done its mopping, let's see how it did. If we remove the water units, you can see the dirty one is now extremely dirty, and I feel ashamed of how messy my floors were, but I also feel really glad to know that this is not on the ground anymore. So all I have to do is dump that out, refill the clean water unit, insert them back into the machine, and it's ready to go again. I think in standard use, if you were scheduling this to run every day, you'd basically need to look at it like once a week and check that dust bin, see if it's filled up, and check the water levels, but no more than that. And if you're not running it every single day, it would probably go even longer than that before it would fill in and need any sort of human maintenance. The other thing you might occasionally need to do is clean the bottom of the unit. And they made this really easy too, so you can easily pull it out. It's got some of those magnets keeping it in place, and just rinse it in the sink. You don't need to take the whole unit to the sink or get down on your hands and knees and clean it on the floor. I like that it comes out so you can clean it at your own convenience. So that's the Narwal Freo, an all-in-one vacuum and mop. It's gonna keep your space clean with minimum maintenance. And if you like this video, I got a whole playlist of other gadget reviews. I'll see you over there.